So Bob and Muggs retired, I guess, the end of the 90s, but they didn't move to Hornby till I think about 2007. And I remember at some point in that intervening time, Bob was saying, "Jesus, I'm working harder than I've ever worked, including when I had a job. We got to move out of town just so we can retire." But you know, Bob was never really the retiring type. So I'm going to ask Butch Leslie and Oakley Rankin to come on up and talk about what Bob was doing up on Hornby since after 2007. Sure. I'll start off. Or do you want to go first? Okay. All right. Oh, I wasn't a little bit intimidated to be up here because of the many stories that have been told, which are there's a richness and a depth and a detail that I hadn't known. I had never heard the story of Bob before he got here filled out in the way that it has been filled out, and so. You know, I'm this sort of lame guy that just hit him at this other time and from my own place. But at any rate, I struggled to be able to think, how in God's name can I capture this guy that I bumped into, but I didn't really know the richness of how he had come to us. So I just squirmed around and I made a few notes, and Oakley will follow on with sort of going further with them. But it was tough. How did I capture this guy? So, I first met Bob when I moved to Hornby some 12 years ago. Nothing formal, no introductions. He simply appeared every time I went to an event and at most gatherings. He seemed to be a presence at every lively spot on the island. He thrived on being among people and giving to and creating with them. And he enjoyed play and being silly. Dressing up as the Wassail Wizard was among his more delightful play suits, as well as Santa Claus gear put on to appear at the co-op to enchant Christmas believers. He also donned fancy waiter gear to serve meals for the elder lunches. After his stroke limited his getting around, with Muggs' guidance and coordination, Bob was able to continue being in the community. He participated in chair yoga, where he was greeted with, "Good to see you, Bob," to which he responded, "Good to be seen." He also carried on with New Horizons events and pushed ahead with history class, where a group of us watched great course CDs and enjoyed heady after-class discussions. All of us here knew this Bob Sarti. He was important to us. We cared deeply for him. His absence is painful, but images of him, moments with him, remain with me, with us. There he is, a presence, warm, lively, attentive, humorous, caring, always generous.
Well, listening to the stories of what you might call Bob's pre-Hornby history is sort of like reading the biography of someone you admire but didn't really know until he reached Hornby. Another sort of era in his life, and that's when I knew him, of course. And like Butch, I've written up a few of the little anecdotes working with him. I first got together with Bob when he wanted to begin a film series at New Horizons on their large TV screen. New Horizons, of course, is the seniors center here, and I think when Bob walked into it, one of the first things he noticed was this giant 60-inch TV and thought immediately of setting up a film series. And of course, I was seen as the go-to guy for technical problems. So we worked to get the shows up and running and discovered that well beyond my usefulness for the technicalities, we both shared a love of film, and we were soon bouncing ideas for film series off one another. Bob was a man of boundless curiosity and enthusiasm, As he stood in front of our small but dedicated audience of film buffs, he exuded a knowledgeable enthusiasm for every film selected. Although I didn't quite share his love of musicals, we found many other films we both admired. As his health deteriorated, I took over the film nights and often asked his ideas on what sort of films I should show. The blessing of the apple trees down at Heron Rocks is a ceremony in January where folks move amongst the dozen or so apple trees at Heron Rocks, chanting a blessing and anointing each tree with cider and bread. It's usually led by an important person. In one of its first years, my wife Shay and I led as the king and queen, and Bob showed up as the chief druid. The following year, Bob forced the royalty to abdicate, and you're probably aware of his attitude towards authority. And we must have represented authority because we abdicated and the chief druid took over to lead the ceremony, reading the blessing from the scroll as we all followed from tree to tree. It was a role that suited Bob with its combination of knowledge and mystery. And as the years went by, Bob came to represent the full apple harvest occurring after the trees had been blessed and put back to sleep. Now, Jay has mentioned yippies in love, but there's a little unknown anecdote about it. Its first run-through actually took place in our home. Bob and Shay and I gathered around my computer. I fired up some audio software, and while Bob directed, Shay and I read the parts of Julie and Andy, with Bob playing the part of the wizard and all the other voices. As none of us were known for great stage presence, it was truly an amateur performance, enjoyed hugely by the three of us. When we were done, Bob felt that a few sound effects might liven it up, and we began to pound on the desk and crinkle paper up. Then we had the bright idea